Hello guys, it's Randall with BitRaged. So I'm doing an update for you guys here on Bitcoin, kind of share some of my thoughts, some of the things I'm seeing. Not a lot is really changing right now, but I do feel like there are some things we should take note of, some things we should be watching for. So I want to share that with you guys. Before we get into the video, we've noticed in the comments a ton of you have expressed an interest in a video further detailing margin trading, shorts, longs, and what happened when those were liquidated. So we will be getting that out to you soon. I do want you guys to know that we did notice that is an interest, and we will be getting that out to you. So keep an eye out for that video very soon. We may even do several videos on it, but we will at least do one for you, and then we'll go from there. So without further ado, let's look at the chart. So on the chart here, I have several things. First of all, we have a descending triangle. Basically, a descending triangle is a bearish pattern. It tends to break out bearish more often than bullish, about 2/3 of the time, give or take. Now, obviously, market sentiment in the news plays a role in which way it breaks out. Obviously, manipulation will play a role in which way it breaks out. But we have to keep in mind that even with manipulation, which has been going on throughout this whole correction and building up to the 20,000 point, the chart still, Bitcoin is still respecting the chart, still respecting technical analysis and trend lines and support and resistance. So I know there's a lot of people that throw it completely out and say it's nonsense. Well, those people don't have a clue what they're talking about. We trade cryptocurrency. We look at charts every single day, sometimes all day long. And honestly, in spite of the manipulation, it still respects the chart. Now, because of manipulation, you might see it come up to a resistance line, and it should be dropping back down for retracement, and it breaks through. So it may not happen exactly as you think it should, but it will still often respect those resistance and support lines. It's important to note that. So even though we do realize that there is manipulation going on, we do know that there are still these points we can look at and say, okay, these are our breakout points, our breakthrough points, our points of heavy resistance. You can manipulate when there's really low volume very easily. When volume picks up and you start to get a lot of organic growth, a lot of organic buy volume, it becomes much harder to manipulate that. And for instance, Bitfinex, they have to actually throw in a lot to push the market. Right now, volume's so low, they can manipulate the market quite easily. It's not a big deal. But once we actually get that organic volume, it makes it a lot harder. So I'm going to share some interesting things with you today. A few things that I want you to pay careful attention to, what I am saying and what I'm not saying. There is a mathematical equation that you can do. It's a statistical mathematical equation. And basically, it tells you the possible point of a breakout. So if you break out, for instance, bullish, it'll tell you mathematically where you should break out to before you see a 20% retracement. So when we do that mathematical equation for a bullish breakout, we actually get around a 19,750. This means that if we were to break out, we could expect to see the price go up to 19,000 before about a 20% retracement. Now, that doesn't mean we won't see small retracements between that, but just most likely not large retracement like 20% or more. Now, that is what the mathematical equation would say. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen. Obviously, this market has kind of done its own thing to some degree. We are definitely still in a very bearish market. So a breakout right now, even of this trend line, could still be potentially a bull trap, and we have to keep that in mind. If we break through this trend line, this long-term correction trend line, we should see bullish buyer volume come in, and we should see it break above this, close above this on the daily, which is right around 91 to 9,300. This is our Fibonacci level. So if we were to see a break above the trend line, organic buyer volume come in, a break above 9,100, close and bullish volume coming in and just supporting that, then we could conclude that perhaps we are starting to see this correction end. Until then, I'm not willing to say that it is happening. And as far as I'm concerned, we haven't seen any bullish nothing. This bullish candle here was completely fake. It was Bitfinex scamming a bunch of shorts. So I don't consider that valid. And besides that, this is all bearish. So we should eliminate this candle completely. Without this candle, we have a whole bunch of bearish, a whole bearish trend here, just this area. And then basically a few little candles of bullish volume. That kind of makes it more accurate here. And it tells us a lot that our big bullish candle was basically a scam. It was basically an orchestrated scam to scam people out of their shorts, which is just horrible. Obviously, shorts can get liquidated in any market, and that doesn't mean it's a scam. That happens in any market. But when you orchestrate it with Tether, yeah, that's a scam. You're scamming people because you made it happen so that you could take people's money, and that's horrible. Interestingly, yesterday we had volume was low, but all of a sudden we dropped $200, and it was in the space of about 60 seconds. We dropped $200, and I was checking Bitcoin longs, and we liquidated 800 Bitcoin longs, which isn't a lot compared to the shorts we liquidated, but there wasn't as many longs to liquidate. So now we're kind of evening it out where nobody wants to go long and nobody wants to go short. And I'm wondering if that's what they want, if that's what Bitfinex wants here. But it's very clear that Bitfinex is orchestrating this and manipulating the market to manipulate longs and shorts for a purpose. They have a purpose. It's not just that they don't have something better to do with their lives. Most likely, they have a big purpose to scam a lot more than the shorts they got here. So we have to be careful. We have to be very careful because we don't know what their plan is. Okay, I got a little sidetracked there. So 19,700 would be the point to break out in a normal breakout. And this is excluding manipulation to some degree as far as the Bitfinex type manipulation. It's also excluding the fact that we still may remain bearish for a while. We need to see a confirmed breakout here. But that would be the point. If we definitely go bullish, that would be the point to look for towards 19,000. Now, please keep this in mind. Even though that is the point that we'd look for once we do turn bullish, we still have all these resistance points we have to pay attention to. So it's not just like, okay, we're home run, clear, we're ready to go. As soon as we get through here, we're going to 20,000. Well, no, we still have to break through these resistance points. You know, the 9,000 area is heavy resistance. And we noticed over here, we had 10,000 running up to 11,000 was heavy resistance. We have heavy resistance running up close to $12,000. Extreme heavy resistance, 13,000. So there's all these levels of resistance through here we have to look at. And we have to see organic buyer volume come in to push through that. So understand that. It's not just a matter of, okay, we're through this line, so we're going to 20,000. It doesn't work that way. But it does give you an idea where we could go if we get the buyer sentiment back in the market. Now, here's the interesting thing, and I don't want you guys to take this too far because it's not a set in stone thing that has to happen. And I don't want you running around saying that we said that Bitcoin's going this low. But somebody asked the question, why did I throw out the figure of $1,000? And I wanted to explain that. So the mathematical equation for a breakout bullish is around 19,750. If you do that on the bearish side, if we break out bearish, the price point is between $600 and $1,000, depending on where you put this line. So we could move this line around a little bit, but it just changes a few $100s. So it's between $600 and $1,000 would be the low point for Bitcoin. If we get a bearish breakthrough here and it plays out normal market conditions. So that is possible. $1,000 Bitcoin is possible, especially if Tether goes down. 1,000 Bitcoin is almost guaranteed to happen. But Bitcoin doesn't actually have to go that low. It doesn't have to go that low. We could go to a higher level and bounce off it, see buyer volume come in and take off. That's why we don't just say, okay, $1,000, we're going to wait till we get there. Well, you have to pay attention, look at the charts. You have to look at the buyer volume, the seller volume, the buyer or the market sentiment, and pay attention to manipulation, what Bitfinex is doing, and factor everything in. And if we're headed to $1,000, we'll be able to see that as we go down. So as we break through our support levels, we'll see panic come in. And if we see huge panic come in where we're literally just smashing through support like it's nothing, then we'll be like, okay, 1,000 might be coming around the corner. But we have to be careful not to just get caught up in emotional draw one way or the other. We have to keep our heads on straight. And we can say, okay, well, 1,000 Bitcoin is possible, but it's not guaranteed. It's not something that has to happen. All right. So if you remember a couple months ago, we told people basically we have to come back to the 6,000 range. That was something that almost had to happen. Now there's a small percentage you could have gotten away with it, but just based on the market and our understanding of markets and trading, we knew that we had to come back. We had to come back to retest that point to get buyer conviction in the market. So when I tell you we do not have to go to 1,000 to get to a point where buyer conviction comes in, you need to pay attention to that. It's not the same thing as us going back to 6,000. However, it is a possibility. So I don't want to keep going over that point, but I do think it's important that, I don't want people to get all hyped up. It's saying that we are telling people it's going to 1,000. It doesn't have to. That would be just the outset. So those are the outer limits, 19,750 if we break out bullish, confirmed bullish, we get the confirmation in the buyer volume to support it, between $600 and $1,000 for Bitcoin. If we break out bearish and we see panic sell volume, which confirms we are dropping way too fast, way too hard, or if Tether blows up. So those are that's the outer limits. That's just something to look at kind of as outer limits. So I hope that's kind of clear. It's important that you don't base too much on that, because like I said, we have to look at our support and resistance lines that we got to tackle first. So as we close out this video, let's look at those. So right now we're looking at somewhere around 8,500 to 8,700 would be to break through this trend line. And like I said before, we definitely want to see a break into 9,100 as confirmation, and then see buyer volume come in to support it as confirmation that bulls have taken charge. Anybody that's telling you that bulls are in charge or have been in charge is clueless. They haven't. This whole spike was orchestrated. It was short liquidation. I mean, it was completely not organic at all. We did see organic volume come in afterwards, during it a little bit afterwards, but it dropped off very quickly and it didn't last, and we're back down to our low volume. So when you see that, you know that the buyer conviction has not returned to the market. So we need to see that as confirmation for a bullish breakout. If we don't, and we do head up to 9,000 and we just do not have the buyer conviction, it could come later, but more likely we will drop back down and break back through our trend line, back into our triangle, probably drop right through it. It looks like right now we should close the daily as a bearish engulfing candle, which tends to indicate that the next candle should be bearish too and should continue bearish. Doesn't have to, but it would indicate that. We do have a couple other things. If we look at RSI, so on RSI we have a hidden bearish divergence, which is basically a lower high on the price action, but a higher high on RSI. Hidden bearish divergences in the past have played out. They've played out as you would expect. So I do expect this one to play out at least in the short term with a drop down to the 7,000 range, most likely. it doesn't have to, but it just would tend to lean that way. We saw this in the past. If you go over here, so we kind of have a similar scenario here. It's obviously a little deeper, but it's very similar in many ways. Even the depth of time is it's similar. And what happened was we saw a small, what would be considered bullish. People were saying this was a bullish breakout on the linear chart, and we warned people that that was a trap, and it did turn out to be a trap. And we broke down, to about 8,000, and then we came back down to the 6,500 range, inevitably. So if this one plays out as well as this one did, we should break out bearish out of the triangle. That's what should happen if it plays out as well as we would expect it to play out. So what we need to keep an eye out, I have here, this is our long-term support line. One of them. There's several lines you can draw based on support for Bitcoin. This is one of them on the log chart. On the linear chart, it's a little different. But actually, the linear chart and the log chart, the long-term support lines, both of them are Bitcoin is respecting. On the linear chart, it's actually, this bearish candle is actually closing, or the low, rather, is actually right on that long-term support line on the linear chart. You notice that it's been respecting the line here, so we definitely consider this line to be valid still. So as Bitcoin, if Bitcoin continues to break down, we would expect it to break down to around 7,000 range with this, and then we expect to either see a breakdown through, which would probably indicate a breakdown below the whole, break through the triangle, or to bounce back up and retest resistance again. But it at least gives you an idea to where to look at. So somewhere in the lower 7,000 range, maybe even as high as 7,500, but somewhere in the 7,000 range, definitely we're going to see it test support. And if we start to see weak hands, we might break down through that very easily. So we have to see kind of how that goes. My philosophy is that Bitfinex is trying to pump the price up to a point where they can get longs back in the market. And then I really believe that they're going to do the same thing again with the longs and liquidate a ton of longs, scare people silly, and drop Bitcoin like a hot potato, basically, which could lead to Bitcoin dropping to $1,000. That kind of a scenario could play out that way. Lastly, as I close this out again, I want to make it really, really, really clear here. Whether we break out bearish or bullish, we need to see confirmation. So not so much bearish, because if we break below this trend line, and specifically our low from February 6th, we should see panic sell come in, which would be confirmation. But if we break out bullish above this trend line, we really need to watch and see if buyer conviction is returning to the market or just pure manipulation. If it's just pure manipulation, price could go up to 11, 12,000, 13,000, maybe 14,000 through manipulation. But most likely there is a plan, and the plan would most likely be to trap buyers, trap longs. And so it's something we really need to watch. I really don't want to see any of you guys, get stuck or hurt, caught in the market, lose a bunch of money. So I'm not telling you not to buy. I'm not telling you not to sell. I'm not telling you not to do anything or to do anything, except be careful and just pay attention to the market and really watch what's going on. If you've watched our videos for the last couple months, there's a ton of information you can glean on watching the market and making good decisions. So I encourage you, if you're new, watch our previous videos. There's a ton of information there that is just amazing wealth of information for traders. If you are new, I encourage you to subscribe, and definitely, if you appreciate the video, give it a like and share it with your friends. We've noticed a few of you have been sharing these videos on Twitter. That means a ton to us. Thank you so much. We really, really do appreciate that. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have a question, drop it in the comments below. Let us know. If you've noticed a chart or a trading view chart or a YouTube video or a Reddit post or something that you thought was interesting, put in the comments below and let us know, and we'll take a look at it and see what we think as well. Thanks, guys, and take care.